Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it is time for another Michigan Monday. And you know how we always talk about how a true freshman quarterback is going to lose you one game a season, at least. That was it. That was the game that Bryce Underwood lost for Michigan. But some combination of Purdue refusing to accept it and Michigan being able to run the ball, and probably the best game I've seen so far from Jordan Marshall, that was enough that despite Bryce Underwood's best efforts at moments, Michigan did not lose the game that the true freshman quarterback tried very hard to make them lose.
Well, I will say if they play like this at Northwestern or at Maryland, there may still be an opportunity for that game to be lost by the true freshman quarterback, especially at Maryland, Tom, when Michigan will be facing the best true freshman quarterback in the Big Ten in Malik Washington. That's just a shot at Michigan fans. It's no big deal. Just having some fun here, just having some fun. I do not expect Michigan to lose at Maryland because for all of the same things you just said about Purdue, double for Maryland. They will find a way to lose. Northwestern sometimes can find a way to win, so that's an interesting one at Wrigley coming up. That'll be fun. But this one, Tom, Michigan wins it 21-16. My notes at the end of in the third quarter when Michigan is leading 14-10, that Purdue is outplaying Michigan. And that's what it felt like through a bit of this game. I don't know that I ever felt like Michigan was in danger just because I had assumptions about Purdue that something, they would do something foolish or they just wouldn't be able to get the plays done. And really, what happened is Jordan Marshall and 25 carries, 185 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, all 3 of Michigan's touchdowns. He, I tweeted it out. He reminded me of Blake Corum in the way that he was not able to be tackled at times. There's some poor tackling by Purdue, but also when on his last touchdown run, he was wrapped up and he came out of the pile somehow and somebody was like trying to grab his leg and he's off and scores. So this was, you said it, this is the best that we have seen from him. And based on reports about Justice Haynes coming out, this is going to need to be almost the norm from him.
Yeah, the reports on Justice Haynes, I think CBS was the one that had it. It sounds like he had foot surgery, which is, very much in line with reports out of an elementary school last week at some point. And then also photos from Michigan reporters pregame on Saturday night that showed him in a walking boot on a knee scooter. It's like neither of those things is great. Those two things together are really not a good indication. So, it was. I have spent the whole year looking at Michigan's running backs and going, Marshall's been okay, but man, they just look so much better when Justice Haynes is in there. You feel like something's about to happen when Justice Haynes is in there in a way that you don't necessarily when Jordan Marshall's in there. And then as soon as Justice Haynes is officially out for a while, I don't know if he just sort of like passed the crown on to Jordan Marshall or what, but all of a sudden, Michigan's first touchdown drive was throw a little screen out to Jordan Marshall, and he's going to, a Purdue player is going to take a poor angle. You don't want to give up outside leverage on a screen on the outside with no one behind you, but he did that. He had about a 25-yard gain there, and then the second play of the drive was a 50-something yard touchdown run. But to me, you get a hole and there's no one there and the safety takes a bad angle, that whatever, that's Donovan Edwards. We've seen that. And you see Donovan Edwards' Pro Bowl career coming up. His career, the peak of that kind of was congratulations, you're on the cover of the video game. That was kind of where that peaked. Jordan Marshall, to me, I look at him a little differently now, not because of the long run there, but because of the other touchdown runs where he's running through the pile. And there was one, I think it might've been the third one, where he sort of runs into the pile and it's like, well, okay, that's gonna be no gain, maybe a yard, maybe he'll fall forward for a yard, something like that. And all of a sudden just like whoop, out the back end and walked into the end zone. Like how did he do that? Did he teleport through those guys? How did he do that? But he was very consistent. We talk constantly about, yes, you've got, and this is true of Ohio State players or any other team's players, Yeah, it was 7.4 yards per carry, but he had, 3 runs of 60 yards, and the rest of them were all 3 yards a carry. No, that was not what Jordan Marshall did. Jordan Marshall did it the hard way, had that one play in the passing game. He had the long run of the day. He had the second longest pass reception of the day for Michigan. That was as impressive a performance as I've seen from a Michigan back. So as impressive as anything Justice Haynes has done this season, and I've been pretty impressed with Justice Haynes.
Yeah, this was one of those things that will convert you into a believer, just because how the force of the work and the width and the breadth of it and all of it, and he carried Michigan, and then he had to leave, and then Bryce Cusdall came in first. I don't know. I'm sure we've seen him. So the first I remember of him, 4 carries for 23 yards as the only other guy. And you're watching throughout this whole game, you're watching Jordan Marshall do all of these carries and catch the ball. He had, the 25-yarder that you said. And I'm thinking, at some point, do they need to mix somebody else in? I understand Justice Haynes can't go, but is there anybody else that can help? Because this is a lot for one guy. And then boom, he goes out. And I'm like, I wish I would have said something to somebody earlier so I could be like, I told you, but there's nobody here. It's just me watching football on a Saturday night after getting back from campus. But then he came back and he gritted it out and he was fine. And you look at that fourth quarter, 19 rushes for the team, 19 rushes for 97 yards, 1 pass for 16 yards. They attempted another one where Bryce Underwood was sacked. So yeah, they put it on the ground. They kept it on the ground. And they did enough to get the win. And I guess this kind of goes along with that. And we'll start talking about all of this other stuff, players and things of that nature. But I saw a tweet from a Michigan fan that basically said, hey guys, since Sharon Moore has taken over, what are the enjoyable games that Michigan has had like, what are the games that have given you pleasure, that have been enjoyable to watch? And, it's mostly just like Michigan game or the Ohio State games. And then like maybe the Alabama game last year. Other than that, this has not been an enjoyable experience in terms of just the fun of the games. And I can relate back in college, we'd record the games on the VCR, Tom. And after the games, we'd get back home and go watch the games and, relive it and have fun because the games were exciting. I don't know that you could do that much during the Tressel era, or like that's certainly not the national championship season, other than some plays here or there, because the games weren't very exciting. And now today, I think the games, at least as far as Ohio State is concerned, maybe more boring than normal. But also, hey, I just saw Jeremiah Smith catch a crazy touchdown pass on Saturday, so it's not actually that boring. But for the Michigan fans and the style of football that is not new at all, but suddenly people are not happy with it anymore. It's like, this is the same style of football we've been seeing the entire time that Jim Harbaugh has been here, except for maybe when they got a little pass happy with, like, I don't know, Shea Patterson or something.
Well, and this isn't a new thing for Michigan at all, let alone the Jim Harbaugh coaching era, the Jim Harbaugh playing era. And, the guy who coached Jim Harbaugh, Bo something or other, he was rather renowned for not winning with a ton of style points a lot of times. And that's just that is Michigan's identity. And, Michigan is going to proudly tell you they're going to man ball you. And it's like, yeah, that is kind of the identity of the program. They they just had a top 10, top 15 NFL draft pick. And that was they threw the ball more than they have at times in the past, but still not a ton. And once he left, they really haven't thrown the ball a lot. And this year you've got a true freshman quarterback. And so you're not going to put too much on his plate, because that's a good way to end up losing a game. And, we can also talk about the skill position talent, the wide receiver talent, all that kind of stuff. But this is what this is what you signed up for. Like, this is not like a real bait and switch. Like, whoa. When Mike Leach was coaching Michigan, I fell in love with the air raid Michigan offense. Like, no, it has been rock, like with occasional paper and or scissors for a long time in Ann Arbor. And this is nothing really new. One of the reasons, we're talking all about the run game and it's all the running back. There are 5 gentlemen up front who have something to say about that as well. And that offensive line,
Mm-hmm.
it's getting better. It is a young offensive line, and they've had a bunch of injuries. They've, Gio Al-Hadi was there, and he was out, and now he's back at the left guard spot, and Evan Link is out for the season, and they lost their true freshman 5-star offensive tackle before the season to a season-ending injury. So they've had to shuffle some guys in and out. And it's, they're not winning the Joe Moore Award this year, but they're not bad. And I think that you're seeing that line sort of start to coalesce a little bit. And Jake Butt talked about Grant Newsom, the offensive line coach, on the broadcast, and he does deserve a lot of credit, because this is a lot like last year for Ohio State, where you had injuries. You lost Josh Simmons, who we talked about before the year is the one guy, the starting left tackle. He's the one guy you absolutely can't afford to lose. And then they shuffled guys, and that didn't work. And then the center, who ended up winning the Remington Award as the best center in the nation, he blew out his Achilles at the end of late November. And so then you had to shuffle the line again. And they had 6 offensive linemen they're shuffling through during the playoff. This is like all real duct tape and baling wire, and they made it work. It's not exactly the same thing, because, there are some other spots in the field where the 2024 Ohio State team is probably superior to what Michigan has in some spots right now. But it is, you can sort of see it coming together in a way on the offensive line right now, where by the time it gets to the Ohio State game, and then, whatever awaits for Michigan after that, that's a young offensive line that should be pretty good for a few years, I think.
And deeper as well, because of the guys that have had to step in for the injuries, and that builds depth for the next year as well. And overall, Michigan 39 carries, 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6.5 yards per carry, 2 sacks in there as well. And when I watched this Michigan running game, you're like, should there have been a tackle there? Would Ohio State have made that tackle? Like that's the entire way I watched that game last night, because Saturday night, is you're just seeing like, well, okay, Purdue didn't get there, but is Arvell Reese getting there? Is Sonny Styles getting there? Is Caleb Downs getting there? The answer is generally yes. Those 3 players were on the Ohio State defense last year as well, and generally they do get there, and it's always late in the fourth when things happen, as we know. I don't need to tell you, Tom. I don't need to tell the people. But watching this, you're like, well, is Jordan Marshall rushing for 185 yards on Ohio State? And the answer is probably not. Does he need to? He may only need to rush for 105 yards on Ohio State. And on 25 carries, that's entirely possible. So, yeah, good job by Michigan running the ball. And they're doing this despite what was a rough day for Bryce Underwood. And he finished 13 of 22 for 145 with an interception. And I may go through this and look at like depth of throws and rewatch it, because I think my third note here is this is not an accurate day so far for Bryce Underwood. And that may have been after 2 throws. Mm-hmm. And he was off pretty wildly on quite a few of those throws throughout the game. And yeah, 13 of 22 is not terrible. The interception was not good, but there were some defensive busts, and they didn't take advantage of them, which is unfortunate for Michigan. This didn't need to be a 5-point game, but as you said, the one game, the freshman game that can cost you a win, this may have been that, based on some of these throws, based on the interception in the red zone, the fumble out of the end zone for a touchback on nearly a touchdown run for Bryce Underwood. And he had a good day running the ball, again, taking some hits that he doesn't necessarily need to. But there's, Tom, the question after I say all of that, my question to you is, are we seeing the improvement that we thought we would from Bryce Underwood, when in August, September, I keep saying the Bryce Underwood that Ohio State sees in November is not going to be this Bryce Underwood? How far have we gone from the Bryce Underwood that we saw in early September to the Bryce Underwood we're seeing now? Because there are some plays where it looks like the same guy.
The joke that everyone makes about their local weather, like outside of like San Diego, everyone makes the same joke. Oh, welcome to Ohio. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Like, haha, welcome to Michigan. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Tony, welcome to South Dakota. If you don't like I mean, it's the same joke everywhere. You've seen it. We can localize that for whatever. That's kind of the Bryce Underwood experience at times, where it's like, well, you don't like what you're seeing from him right now. Wait 5 minutes. I'm just going to read my notes in order. Bryce Underwood, 3 guys coming at him, gets the edge, picks up a first down, but lowers his shoulder into a guy instead of stepping out. Like, incredible athleticism. Got to have a little more long-term thinking. That is my hobby horse. At some point, someone's going to hit him, and I'm going to go, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you should have coaches telling him this. This should be something they're talking to him about. He's rolling right, inaccurate a couple times, sailing the ball, and then immediately make a really nice throw to Andrew Marsh. Just, it's inconsistent, but it's there. And then the worst throw of the night, well, there was some company. The next 2 throws are on the notes are terrible. One was an underthrow to Marlon Klein, where Marlon Klein is like, you get your average Dr. Pepper pass. If they're not doing the chest pass, you can probably get that ball to Marlon Klein because he is running free and clear. And it just was, it was like someone unplugged the jugs machine halfway through, and it just went, like, you've got the arm strength, get the ball there, lead your receiver a little bit. Like, it was almost like he was, throwing a back shoulder, except the guy had his guy beat. And also the guy didn't know you were throwing a back shoulder. It was just bizarre. And then he immediately throws into double coverage over the middle in the red zone and gets picked off. And he had Donovan McCulley open in the end zone, and just like, McCulley was like hand wavingly open. He was not like doing jumping jacks like I think you would like him to be doing, like, hey, over here. But he was there, and it was like a real freshman mistake there. And then had, as you said, the other fumble out the end zone on the rule that is the single most infuriating rule in football if it happens to your team, and it's hilarious if it happens to anyone else's team. So Michigan fans got their turn to have this rule needs to get changed conversation, and maybe it does, but yeah, it was just a good news, bad news, good news, bad news. And to your question, he's better. But this is not a linear thing. This is not just he's going to be 10% better every week, and then by the end of the season, he's going to be 120% better. Like, no, it's not work. It's sort of fits and starts, and sometimes it's going to be, sometimes it's going to be like, wow, he really took a step there. And sometimes it's going to be like, boy, he is going backwards right now. This is a couple games in a row that I'm kind of going like, he didn't look as great against Michigan State as you would sort of expect, with Michigan State being what Michigan State is this year. And you can kind of hand wave that because it's an in-state rivalry and weird things happen and all that kind of stuff. But now, okay, this is 2 in a row where he hasn't looked great, and Purdue's defense is no great shakes. Like, they're fine, but they're not, they're not a disaster, but they're not great. And so this is two in a row against not particularly good defenses where he's looked a little out of sorts, a little off kilter, however you want to say it. I do wonder, we talk about hitting the freshman wall all the time for running backs and wide receivers and guys like that. I wonder if he's kind of hitting the freshman wall here, where he's being asked to do an awful lot for this team. You're now getting into November, and this may be a very, very good time for them to have a week off to maybe just sort of, unplug him for 30 seconds and then plug him back in.
Well, and this was his, I don't want to say worst game, because again, he was 13 of 22 for 145 and an interception, no touchdowns. This was the roughest I think he's looked at home. Like, we've expected that on the road at some of these places, USC, Michigan State, Nebraska, Oklahoma. There can be some rough moments on the road for anybody. This was supposed to be an opportunity for a good game, and I think Purdue gave him some trouble. And now to have him go on the road these next 2 weeks, it's, I don't know if it's ideal, or maybe it's a way for him to get locked back in and, get ready for that final home game against Ohio State. And in terms of other true freshman quarterbacks, like, Bear Bachmeier at BYU, Malik Washington at Maryland, JKS at Cal. You saw one at Pitt a week ago with Mason Heinschel. Those guys, like, in conference play, I just looked, and like in conference play for all 5 of those guys, Underwood has the fewest touchdowns with 5. the fewest yards passing, 1,043, about the same kind of completion percentage, the fewest interceptions at 2. And he's certainly not doing as much throwing as some of these guys, but like at some point you'd like to see him kick it up a notch and have a game where you're like, okay, I see it. What he has is moments. He has not had one of those, oh my, games yet.
No, he definitely has it. And I think that the supporting cast is probably part of it. And, you have Donovan McCulley, who you keep seeing flashes of Donovan McCulley, just like you're seeing flashes of Bryce Underwood. But then, he got hurt. I don't know what his status was. I mean, and we probably need to have the MASH report for Michigan because they are a medical, in crisis right now. But McCulley was hurt. Andrew Marsh had a kind of up and down game. And, he's another freshman where, 2 separate kick returns where you returned for multiple yards deep in the end zone and you got to the 20 and the 14. That was like a real, just in case you were wondering if he's still a true freshman. Yes, he is still a true freshman. But you have pieces and parts there. Marlon Klein, really solid tight end, but he's not Colston Loveland. And you've got wide receivers who are, you have a very talented true freshman wide receiver in Andrew Marsh, but he's not Mario Manningham freshman yet. And you have a, talented wide receiver in Donovan McCulley, who's now banged up and has been, he's good for a play or two a game where you kind of go, oh yeah, nice play. And then you just he sort of vanishes back into the mists. I'm going to avoid triggering Michigan fans by mentioning their third receiver, who had another one, another one where everything about that play was that's not going to be fun in the film room, because it was that was a bad throw that led a receiver into a safety. The receiver then got erased, and also he dropped the ball before he got erased. It was boy, that was just L's all around there. That's not going to grade out well in the film room. But it's a true freshman. You're going to have that to a certain degree. But the talent around him on offense, the running back room, I'm fine with it. I think the running back room I would have given a B plus. At this point, that was an A performance for Marshall on Saturday. But the wide receiver room, what's the grade on the wide receiver room right now? C plus. Am I being a generous grader?
I mean, are they average or are they below average? I'd say they are below average. I think. And you think Andrew Marsh is going to be very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan McCulley, 1 catch for 5 yards, 3 targets. There's even Marsh, 4 for 25 on 5 targets. That's not good enough. And it's the short stuff. And that's with the long of 20. His other 3 catches, 1 for 5 yards. What are you doing? What's the point? So again, the design, the execution of the offense, at least the passing game, needs plenty of help. But also needs more talent. And, we even saw Jamar Browder, freshman number 6 wide receiver. I haven't noticed him at all this year. I don't know that he has a catch, but he was out there early in this game. And I guess he's played sparingly, but here and there and throughout each of these games, he steps in there. But it's every year there's somebody like him where they're trying to make it happen, or somebody, we've got a young guy we really love. And every year it's somebody new, and that person eventually goes off and, transfers out because they're not good enough. And I'm not saying that's what this kid is. It's just they're always looking because they never have. And Donovan McCulley is the latest in the transfer portal ad that, he could eventually do something. I mean, he's capable of doing something, but again, it's like the rest of the pass offense. You can't expect it to happen. It might, but don't sleep on it because it might happen to you. But it's nothing you have to fear.
Right. Well, and their long pass play of the game was, Tony, what kind of a play did their long pass play of the game come off of?
It was a reverse flea flicker, which is what they needed to do to open up the passing game. It's hey, can you loosen the lid on this jar? And just you bang it on the counter, and here you go. This is the banging the jar on the counter for Michigan several times a year.
Yeah, it feels like they have the Tecmo Super Bowl playbook on offense, where it's yep, I'm running the old Washington Redskins playbook on Tecmo Super Bowl, and they've got that reverse flea flicker in there, and I'm going to pop that once a game, and okay, but you got to have other pass plays. You got to have other stuff that works. And that was 37 yards, and that was the long pass play of the game. That only works so often. I mean, that can't be your base offense and just reverse flea flicker. So, yeah, I think the receiving core continues to be an issue, and just with the injuries just piling up. I mean, we can talk about, maybe this will transition us to the defense, but the good news is Davis Warren was dressed and back for the first time. So, he's potentially, I mean, Davis Warren is, I'm going to try to balance this in the best way I can so that our entire comments aren't just, well, you saw what he did in Columbus last year, which, was take the snap and, end up being tangentially involved with a 13-point game. Fine, that's good, because Jaden Davis is not ready for prime time. I mean, very clearly. So that's good news on the injury front for Michigan. But man, no Rod Moore on Saturday. Justice Haynes, we talked about already. No Cole Sullivan on Saturday. No Jimmy Rolder on Saturday. No Evan Link now for the rest of the season. Haynes, we'll see how long that is. Donovan McCulley leaves with a leg injury. He went kind of limping up the tunnel. I haven't heard that that's a season ending. I mean, that looked like probably more of a sprained ankle kind of thing, where it might be a short to medium term thing, but they're losing guys at positions where they're not necessarily deep enough to be able to kind of go like, well, next man up. Like, you can say that, but sometimes the next man up is a big step down, and that's where it feels like they might be in certain places.
Well, did you mention Jayshon Barton?
Oh no, I didn't know.
Getting hurt as well, and so like he and Ernest Hausman were the starting linebackers because of the missing Rolder and Cole Sullivan, and those two guys have been productive certainly of late. And so then you got to go back to, and not that you got to go back to the original starting linebackers. And Ernest Hausman has always been there, but they like to mix all of these guys in. And now without those guys to mix in, we saw Purdue do pretty well on the ground, 138 yards on 39 carries, 3.5 yards per carry. But more importantly, like running backs, Malachi Thomas, 15 for 68 with a long of 14. Antonio Harris, 11 for 54 with a long of 20. Like, they were getting pretty decent yardage, the kind of yardage that if Ohio State were to get it, you'd feel pretty good about picking up a 3rd and 3 or a 3rd and 4 through the air. So they did well there. I think we could probably chalk up some of that to having, being down some linebackers. And then the passing game with Ryan Brown, the Purdue quarterback, 19 of 24, very empty calories, 133 yards passing. Like, none of their receivers averaged more than 10 yards a catch. Nobody even got to 10 yards a catch, basically. Michael Jackson, the third, 6 for 58. And he was the leader in every category. So it's like they were doing well. They just didn't do well enough. And Ryan Brown, yeah, great job completing 79% of your passes. Not good enough, Tom. I feel like if Julian Sayin, if I tell you right now that Julian Sayin completes 79% of his passes, where do you put that on the percentage likelihood that Ohio State wins? Is the completion percentage equal to the percent chance that Ohio State wins? Is that the line that we're following all the way down?
That's probably, and it's probably not quite linear, but yeah, if Ohio State's completing 75, 80% of their passes, just based on the way Ohio State throws the ball, yeah, you're gonna really like their chance to do something with that and to win the game. I think the run defense against Purdue, I am willing to hand wave that and say, banged up linebackers, these things happen. We just watched Penn State, and Penn State loses Tony Rojas for the season at linebacker, and immediately they can't stop the run. Like, I see it. I see it in other places. I get it. Absolutely. That to me isn't really a concern. Tony, we got to have a conversation. Why don't you pull up a seat, close the door? We got to have a conversation about the Michigan secondary, because not great, Bob. It is. And it's not great, Bob, in a lot of the same ways over and over again. I mean, Brandon Hillman, like, my brother in Christ, do you have arms? Stop trying to run through people and tackle, stick and wrap. Like, at this point, like, I'm going to say the name, I'm sorry, but like, I have a note on here for Michigan fans. He has to be the Samaj Morgan of the defense, where people are going like, what are you doing? Like, it can't be like they are players who are talented. They are players who have physical attributes that are like, wow, like Brandon Hillman he must be very strong because he hit very hard. And Samaj Morgan, boy, he is shifty and he is speedy. But like, if you're a safety who can't tackle and a wide receiver who can't catch, like you have limited functionality as a football player. That's a problem. And, you look at, was it TJ Metcalf had a receiver get behind him, but it was a bad throw, so it wasn't a touchdown. But then he had my favorite play of the game where he broke up a pass, starts to celebrate, and then multiple flags come flying in for pass interference. And you see him he's celebrating, and then he just like puts his hands on his head like, oh, that can't be. Jair Hill, another pass interference call in the end zone. There was that like floated pass where one of the defenders had to like make a choice basically and come up and like play the pass, play the quarterback so he didn't run for a first down and got the ball dumped over his head. Jair Hill was back there and could have made it, and it was just another terrible tackle attempt. Like the tackling's been bad, the coverage has been bad. There's an awful lot about this Michigan team that I'm going, you know what? This is a team that could absolutely make the college football playoff. Could be like, I look at this as a Michigan team that like, if they play a team with a good passing attack and they can't get home, like you see why Wink Martindale is constantly bringing pressure. Cause I think Wink Martindale knows if a quarterback can sit back there and have 3 seconds, like that is not going to be good news.
I know you have to run the ball to win this game, Tom, between Ohio State and Michigan. If Ohio State can protect Julian Sayin, they don't need to run the ball a single time. They don't need to involve the running game. They can just throw the ball and complete the ball and make plays after the catch and get 15 yards on pass interference plays 3 or 4 times in a game if you just attack the secondary. I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. I'll continue to say it. There's room there to make plays against everybody. Everybody out there is vulnerable if there is time to throw the ball. But, the credit to Michigan defensive line. They were getting there, TJ Guy, Derek Moore right off the gate, got a great jump that may have been called an offside the week before. Wasn't an offside sides this week. So those guys did well. Rayshon Benny got in there. We saw Cameron Brandt get in there a time or two and hurry the quarterback. So they were getting some pass rush, but overall, like when I'm watching this and when I've watched it every time, every game this year, you could just imagine if Ohio State's offensive line gives Julian Sayin time, he's completing 80% against, the nation this year, the V8 opponents. Nothing I see from Michigan's defense makes me think that he can't do that in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, except for the moment, the weather, and just, nerves and things like that. But we have not seen any nerves from Julian Sayin so far this year. So I'd like to expect that. I don't know, maybe you're just not giving the kid a fair shake.
Yeah, no, I mean, until you see it, I don't know that you're going. I mean, his first start was against the number 1 team in the nation and was, yes, at home, but he looked fine in that game and has only improved since then. The weather, I looked that up while you were talking. Even before you mentioned the weather, I looked up the weather. Tony, of course, we're 4 weeks out, so this is going to be an extremely accurate forecast. Day of the game in Ann Arbor, Michigan, 39 degrees and cloudy, low of 31. So no precipitation in the forecast, no mention of wind. Again, we're 4 weeks out, so go ahead and mark that down. Start carving that into stone because that'll be exactly what it is. I also quickly pulled up the College Football Nerds model just to see where they have Ohio State's pass yards per attempt offense against Michigan's defense, which is an opponent-adjusted thing. They show Ohio State being 9% better than their typical yards per attempt against the Michigan defense. So, they don't think Ohio State can run the ball, which, yeah, same, but they think Ohio State will be able to throw the ball probably just fine.
I would agree. Now, the 39 degrees gives me some concern, Tom, if you're Ohio State, after seeing the one throw against Tennessee last year from Julian Sayin in chilly weather. So not a great small sample size, but still concerning. Do we want to bother talking about the again, shaky special teams throughout. I will say Hudson Hollenbeck, their punter, got a punt tipped that still went inside the 20. So good job with the punt, landing a punt inside the 20. Not a great day from him, and not a great day from Samaj Morgan, who had a punt return that lost a few yards, which is not abnormal given the circumstances.
Yeah, the no field goals in this game. So, but yeah, the two kickoff returns from Andrew Marsh that I mentioned earlier, neither of which got past the 20, and he could have just waved his arm and gotten it to the 25. So that's, I think, a concern. And that's just decision making. That's and frankly, I wonder, you wonder about the conversations around that. Is this, is the coaching staff saying, look, we may need a spark on special teams because we don't necessarily think we can do it on offense. And that's why you're putting him back there, and not just saying, Ohio State in the Urban Meyer era used to just put KJ Hill back there, who was, about their fifth most explosive wide receiver, but they would just trust him to catch the football and just say, just catch it. And, don't worry, the offense will score from there. All you have to do is catch it and not let it roll down to the 1. And that was about all there was. Michigan's not really in that spot right now. And so, that's probably part of it. But yeah, the special teams, Hudson Hollenbeck, because the tipped punt doesn't count, count, he shows up as 46.7 yards per punt, but he had a clunker early and, and then also had the one tipped. So just inconsistent. And that's, even Dominic Zavada's been a little bit inconsistent this year. And we've talked about that a few times, where he was just automatic last year and he's missed, 3 or 4 this year, where that would have been stunning a year ago. So just little stuff that, it reduces your different ways you can win a game, whether it's against Ohio State, or if they beat Ohio State and they go to the Big Ten championship game, or they go to the college football playoff. All of those things, if you're sloppy in some of these areas, that's the stuff that can catch up with you when you're playing teams that are better than Purdue.
And Purdue had 27 yards on their 3 kickoff return, average 27 yards on their 3 kickoff returns. Again, not that ever applies to Ohio State, because they will generally just assume we'll take the 25 yards and go from there. So there you go. Michigan guts out a 21-16 win over Purdue. Those are our thoughts. Go ahead and give us yours in the comments if you'd like to do that. If you're watching on YouTube, a thumbs up would be great. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. And of course, you can continue to find us where we are also talking about Michigan on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. You can find us there. Sign up now, become a member, say hello to us there. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.